Name is Andrew. I am the Sumner County Ag and Natural Resources Agent for Livestock and Forages for Sumner County. So I'm going to give you a presentation on Backyard Poultry Basics 101. I grew up raising chickens through the chick chain program through 4-H, and just as the family farm as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right. So one of the first things I want to cover is the high egg prices. I know everybody this year's kind of been looking at the high egg prices. They have tapered off in the past couple months, the past few months, but that is something that I kind of wanted to talk about because these high egg prices are actually driven by the AI avian influenza outbreak. This comes from wild birds, ducks, and geese flying over. Many of the lost birds were table egg layers during the holiday baking season last year. And then we saw those high prices at the beginning of this year. Like I said, it has tapered off. I have on here from July to August is whenever those new hens were able to be replaced. And then, of course, it takes about 6 months to raise these table egg layers. 3 weeks for a fertile hen to egg to hatch into a baby chick, 20 to 22 weeks for the chick to grow into an adult hen, and then gradually works up to a grade A large eggs. Um, I did talk with our poultry specialist earlier today. He told me that high egg prices will probably once again be something else that are affected. We probably will see another rise in those just because there have been some cases up in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So those birds are making their way back down this way. So I have a couple publications here I just kind of want to touch on real quick. So this one comes from the backyard chickens are not the answer to high egg prices. Um, so basically, if you could see here, baby chicks usually are about $5 each, about 50, sometimes 50 to $60 up, depending on the breed. Um, however, let's go back to here just to give you an idea. Okay. So really what I want to pay close attention to is that with the high egg prices being at record highs that we've never seen before, they had talked about the remainder of 2025 was going to be high. Like I said, we tapered off. They may raise back up before the end of the year. However, they did surge up 15.2% in January, according to the U.S. Labor Department's Consumer Price Index. And that was the largest increase in egg prices since June of 2015, which is the last time we had a major avian influenza outbreak. On an annual basis, egg prices are up 53% at that time. Like I said, it has tapered off, but just be prepared for those high egg prices to probably and possibly come back toward the end of this year. Okay. So the big question a lot of times that I get is where do I begin? Where do I start if I want to start raising chickens? First question you need to ask yourself, can I have the birds at all? You know, do you live inside of an HOA? Do you live inside of city limits? Um, do they allow it? How many do they allow? Do they allow? What is your end goal with these birds? How many chickens do you need and for what you want? And then do you even have enough space to have these birds? So you want to make sure that you've got a plan in mind for these birds. Know your rules and regulations if you are inside of city limits or an HOA. They are different sometimes for each group or each county. So if you don't know those, you can reach out to you can find that online, or sometimes I have people call me and I'll check those rules and regulations for them. So when you're looking to begin, a few things to look at. Breed selection is going to be your first biggest choice. So what purpose will these birds actually have? Okay. You've got really three different purposes, which majority of us are going to probably be in egg production, but they do have dual purpose birds. Those birds are for egg production or they're also for meat production. Okay. So for dual purpose, I got a couple examples here, a Rhode Island Red and a Dominique. Those are on the right side of the presentation. The red bird is the Rhode Island Red. The black and white looking speckled bird is a Dominique. And then your egg production, usually a leghorn or a leghorn, you might hear called. It is mostly a white bird. They do lay white eggs. And then the Americanas. Americanas, a lot of times are what people also call Easter eggs that they lay. And then most of these hens will start to lay around 18 weeks of age. I will show you this publication that we have, and it basically will show you right here common egg laying chicken breeds. So this is something to kind of look at when you look at selecting a breed. So, like I said, you've got your white leghorns or leghorns. Um, Egg production, excellent egg production, large egg size. Of course, like I said, they're gonna have white eggs. They are pretty flighty, but they have good foraging ability and they're not broody. So you want to be careful when you're selecting a bird. If you look down through the little chart here, and if you need this information, you can reach out to me and I could send this publication for you to have as well. But your leghorns are going to be kind of flighty. The sex links, usually they're somewhat calm. They are red and black sex links. Um, the Americanas, like I said down here, are the blue-green eggs, sometimes called the Easter eggs. They do have a large size. Each different breed will have a different egg size. All of them listed here are somewhat good or excellent egg layers. Colors can vary. A lot of times you're going to have brown eggs. Like I said, Americanas have that blue green or Easter eggish look. And then, of course, you have those that do lay the white eggs. The biggest thing I usually tell people when to look for them, whether it's not usually the egg size or the egg color. A lot of times it's the disposition and the egg production. So looking into that disposition, a lot of times you want a calmer bird. This is just kind of on average from some research that we have done. But like I said, you're looking at your sex links, they are pretty calm. I personally have some of these birds myself. So I know that they are good egg layers. So we will look back into that. Okay. And then, like I said, that last breed selection thought you may have some people that do want to get into meat production. Um, there are some different breeds out there. If you have questions on that, feel free to reach out to me, like I said. But majority of people are probably going to be looking for that egg production laying hen, or they may go with the dual purpose just because they also do lay eggs. People sometimes have their preference on color with chickens. They have a lot of different colors and a lot of the different variety of breeds. So when it comes to housing, there are many, many ways to do this. Okay. You can build from the ground up, you can acquire and furbish, you can buy kits and assemble. So whether that is, and I'll give you some examples of that as well, whether that is buying one online on Amazon or something of that nature, getting it shipped to the house, putting it together, or um, what I have personally done, and I'll show that here in a second, not mine, but kind of give an idea of what it is. Um, but kind of making your own out of something that's already been made. You can buy a finished chicken coop already built. And then I do have some poultry plans here on this link for anybody that is interested in some different plans to look at if you're building one yourself. Okay. So, like I said, there's different types of coops. You can go with a stationary or a mobile. If you have less yard space or space where you want these birds, you're probably going to go a more stationary route. If you do have the space, sometimes the mobile option, or what we call also a chicken tractor, something that you can have on wheels, that you can move around a little bit easier, with forage quality, whether that's them eating the insects, getting good grass, and things of that nature from your ground. So when it comes to stationary, like I said, you can build the housing system to your specs. So you can build it as big as you want, as small as you want, exactly how you want it. There are plans available all over the internet. Like I said, I also have a link for some plans that we have through UT. They can be used in urban areas. And one downside of it is the ground may become bare. So it's going to be hard to regrow seed inside of a stationary coop. That is one con of it. Um, so sometimes, kind of like I told you, I was going to give you my example of what I did. So if we go back to this kind of stationary coop I've got here on the left hand side, basically what I did is whenever I started the chick chain project in fourth grade, we went to a Lowe's or a Home Depot, I can't remember which, and we bought a like a tool shed that they had there. And so I took that tool shed and we kind of used it to build off of. We started with that and then we worked our way and we put nesting boxes in. We will talk about in a few minutes about nesting boxes. And then we cut holes in the back wall and created a run. And we just used old dog pen panels and made a run for these chickens. And we made it to where we could shut it off in the middle so we could grow grass in the back so they would have good forage quality. The one thing about stationary is sometimes it can be a little bit close quarters. So you want to be able to build it to where you can get in and out, especially if you're doing the egg laying hens or the dual purpose birds. Um, Really any of them, but especially for that. So that way you are able to get in there, clean it out, change out their food and water, and gather the eggs. On the mobile ones or the chicken tractors, they're usually bottomless. It's a portable shelter or pen that can be moved around property. There are a lot of designs available on the internet. Some people, like I have written down here, many folks use them in conjunction with fruit and vegetable production. So basically, the reasoning for that is that they move that chicken tractor to a spot, they have it built to their specs, and then all of a sudden they say, okay, we're going to leave it here for a certain amount of time. The chickens are going to kind of harvest some of the insects and some of the grass there in that area. And then they will defecate. And they use that defecation as kind of like a fertilizer for a garden. So they'll till it in and then have a garden there, or like it says, fruit production as well. So some of the things when it comes to housing, there is a word, flaws, which stands for feed, lights, air, water, and sanitation. These are very, very big necessary needs. So you need to make sure you have pre-placement preparation. So that means already know your plan when you go in. You already want to have that chicken coop, whether it's stationary or mobile, built. You want to make sure that it is feasible to use. You want to have a feed management plan. We'll talk about a little bit here in a second about the different types of feed and what you should and shouldn't do. Light management. They will need lights at some point, sometimes during the winter time. Heat lamp is a good thing to have. So we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. Ventilation and air quality management. Sometimes some of these birds will brood, creating a lot of dust to kind of come up. You want to make sure they have good air quality coming through that coop. That way it doesn't get too stuffy in there. And also water management. They are always going to need water. Hot, cold, doesn't matter. These birds are your responsibility. So you will have to go out there and many times, it may be super hot or super cold. You still got to get out there. These birds need that water to survive. Also, temperature management somewhere during that winter time where they can come in, they can all, be in a warmer space. But like I said, we'll get into that here in just a moment. All right. So talking about the feed, there's a lot of different things, a lot of different kinds of feed, a lot of brands. When you start raising birds, you want to start with the right feed. Now, it depends on if you buy chicks or you buy uh, uh, older birds in that sense. But if you start out with a pullet, a chick, when you start out, of course, they're going to need chick starter. It's a high protein. Okay. There's a reason that it's called a chick starter. They need that high protein to get their nutrition up in a good spot. That'll be for about the first 6 weeks. After that, they will move into a grower feed for about 6 to 20 weeks. And in that time, like I told you earlier, that 18 to 20 week range, they're going to start laying. So then that's when, at the end of the 20 weeks, they go into a layer pellet or crumble. Now, my personal preference when it comes to some of these, when you're starting with a chick starter, a lot of times I'll tell people it comes in a pellet form and it comes in a crumble form. When it comes to that, I like to usually go a crumble form. It's a little bit smaller. It's a little bit easier for these birds to eat. They won't get choked up. And they're going to get a bunch of that nutrition. Once you get into that grower feed, I kind of leave it up to people whether they would like to go toward a crumble or to a pelleted feed. Dumar here is a good brand for chicken feed. And then, of course, with the layer and pellet crumble at 20 plus weeks, I also leave that up to them. A lot of times on that, what I like to do is I'll go more toward a layer pellet just because it's a little less messy and everything they need is in that little bitty pellet. Okay. So, like I said, chick starter, I usually start out on a crumble, grower feed. You can go either way. And then when it comes to the layer, I like to usually go toward a pellet to make sure they're getting all they need. Let's check here. Okay. So, one misconception scratch grain. When it comes to scratch grain, it is cheaper than regular chicken feed. Okay. For them, scratch grain is like sitting at the dining room table and you have to finish your broccoli before you can get a cookie, but they're sitting side by side. Okay. They're going to go for that cookie or that scratch grain before they ever go to eat that broccoli or the regular chicken feed because it's like candy to them. So with the scratch grain, I usually tell people be very, very careful. I'm not saying it's actually, it's not a bad thing per se, but there's a reason that they're two separate things. That chicken feed itself has the nutrition that those birds need. That scratch grain can be a little add-on, so when you feed those birds, you want to make sure that they're eating their good nutrition. And that scratch grain, sometimes, personal experience, what I do, if I'm using scratch grain, it may be whenever I come into the chicken house or the chicken coop. When I come in, I take a little handful of it and I throw it outside the back of the chicken coop and they go on to the run. And I can grab the eggs without having to worry about the birds coming out of the house whenever I'm grabbing the eggs out of the chicken coop. So that's just be cautious when you're buying the scratch grain. I know sometimes it's hard, it is cheaper, but they do need that nutrition. Okay. Now, when it also comes to the feeders and the waters, so your feeder is the little metal tin. It says feeder on it. That is one way that you can start out. But usually, what I recommend, and this is something a lot of people don't know, if you go into a Tractor Supply or a co-op or a farm store, what you'll see when you look at the chicken feeders and the waters is that majority of them are red, but they do come in many different colors. I've seen purple, I've seen blue, green, yellow, but there's a reason that it is red. For some reason, chickens will go after the color red. So you'll see the long feeder down here on the bottom with a little chick and a little pile of feed next to it. That is usually what we use for chicks. Once you buy those from Tractor Supply or Co-op or a feed store, you buy those birds. You want to make sure that you start out with something like that because you want it to be in the proper stage. Okay. So you can start out with that for the chicks. That way, multiple of them can get around it at the same time. It's not too big for them to fall into. We'll start there, and then over time, you can move to a number of different things. I've seen some crazy DIY things when it comes to feeders and waters. The feeder, like I told you a couple seconds ago, in the top right corner, the metal one, that is an example of a feeder. Um, Once they kind of get a little bit bigger out of that chick stage, the biggest thing is to make sure that you keep these feeders and waters at back height. Okay. That way, if you keep it at their back height, they won't be able to really get up in there. And the biggest reasoning for that is making a mess of the food. There's going to be mess. It's a chicken coop. However, it is a way to prevent them from getting into the feeder and defecating using the bathroom in the feed. So that will keep a lot of your feed a little bit cleaner. When it comes to the water, same thing. You want to keep it at back height, and you want to make sure that that water is fresh and clean. If you don't want to drink it, then don't let them drink it. Okay, they are going to try to use the bathroom and things of that nature to get whether it be shavings or scratch grain or whatever it is you have in there for them to bed in, sawdust, newspaper clippings. I usually like the flakes that you can get at the Tractor Supply in those bales. In the white bag is usually what I like to use in my own chicken coop. For the bedding, But like I said, with the waters, you want to keep that water good and clean and fresh. Sometimes, like I said earlier, that means in the wintertime, sometimes it may freeze. So there are some options out there for, I don't know if they have them. I don't think so at the moment. They might have waters that are electric that are heated. Sometimes what I do is I have a heated dog bowl that I'll use. I'll keep it kind of about their back height, whether I put it up on a block of wood or a cinder block or a milk crate or something like that, where they can drink out of it. Uh, but that way they have good water throughout the winter time as well. You want to make sure and go and check that, you know, once or twice a day when you get the time to make sure they have good water, enough water. Okay. And that's the same thing when it comes to cleaning these things as well. You want to make sure they're good and clean. Now, I talked about the DIY different ways to do things. So, personally, myself with a feeder, I don't use either one of these feeders anymore. I have in the past. I just use a 5 gallon bucket. I took a 5 gallon bucket. I drilled holes into the bottom around it, big enough for the feed to come out. And I've got a tray drilled to the bottom of the 5 gallon bucket. So I can go in there and I can fill up their feed, especially if I'm going to be gone for a long time. I may have a neighbor or a family member or relative come over and check on them, get the eggs, make sure they still have feed and water. But that is a way for me to make sure I've got enough feed in there for them throughout the day. I have seen people with PVC pipes. They'll put a PVC pipe up to kind of the top of the wall, and they will take that and fill it up with feed, and they'll have kind of a like an elbow on the bottom of it, and make sure that hole is just big enough they can get their head in for the PVC pipe, and they can eat that way. And it's a gravity flow system. The waters, there's a lot of different options out there. You can search the internet. I still use just a classic old water like you see here on the screen. Um, but like I said, they come in many colors. I just usually get the red one, just because I have been told in the past that the chickens do like the color red. That's just an personal experience. When it comes to lighting, hens will lay an egg about every 25 hours. Okay. So to get maximum egg production, hens need about 16 hours of lighting. You're not always going to be able to get that perfected. So sometimes, if you have one or two that maybe they're at that laying stage, but they haven't laid one yet, it could be they're a couple of hours off. Okay. Hens will stop laying eggs in late fall when the days get shorter due to not having light year round. So when those days get shorter, you may have, like I said a couple seconds ago, you may have a few hens lay today, and then you might have the others lay tomorrow, and it may be in little spurts. Okay. But throughout that winter time, when it comes with heating or lighting, excuse me, um, you want to make sure that you can use heat lamps or anything of that nature to kind of keep a little bit more heat in there. If you look in your chicken coop and they are, all kind of huddled together in the same spot, it means it's probably too cold in there. So you probably need a heat lamp. That'll give them enough heat to be able to be comfortable. If you see them, all really far apart from each other and they're all like on the walls trying to stay away from each other, it is way too hot in there. Okay. What you want to see is them commingling all throughout, kind of a little bit spread out throughout the chicken house. And that lets you know that they're comfortable in that situation, whether it is just good feeling weather outside, or it is hot or cold or anything like that. You want to make sure that they're all kind of commingling and a little spread out. Like I said, if you see them huddled all together, they're probably too cold. If they're trying to stay away from each other, they're probably too hot. All right. So, like we talked about with the nest boxes, and also knowing that you need 3 to 4 square feet per bird in a coop. So whenever you are building your chicken coop or your chicken house, make sure that you figure out, okay, how many birds am I going to have? Okay. And then sometimes this depends on breed as well. This is for about an average bird. Sometimes if you have a smaller breed, you won't need as much space. And actually, give me just one second. I can show you. Let's go back to this publication here. So this is about the square feet per bird. Like I said, large chicken for the inside is about 2 square feet. But like I said, those smaller breeds, like your bantams, or sometimes you call them, or heard them called bannies, they only need about 1 square foot. Your laying hens usually it says 1.5 square feet. So I usually say about 3 to 4 just to make it good and comfortable in there. Um, so yeah, so here, get back to where I was at. Um, so that'll take care of you whenever you're looking at your specs of how big you want it to be and how much space you think you need. Determine that number of birds, and then use that square footage to build that coop. When it comes to nesting boxes, or your laying boxes, where they're going to lay the eggs, uh, they need to be available about that 19 to 20 weeks of age range. Okay. Um, this prevents the hens from laying the eggs on the floor, and you need at least one 10 by 10-inch nesting box per 4 to 5 birds. Okay. You can build these yourself if you feel so, if you feel you can do that. You can buy them already made at a farm store, or there are some other DIY ways of doing this. I've seen people use milk crates and things of that nature. The biggest thing to remember is having that bedding. Like I said, I like using those wood chips, the wood flakes that you can get at the Tractor Supply. Um, it's a simple way of doing it. Like I said, there's many different types of bedding you can use. That's what I like to use. That way, once that hen lays that egg in that nesting box, you know where they're going to be. Sometimes it may take them a few tries to learn. Okay, I'm supposed to lay in these boxes. One thing I usually like to mention when I'm going through this presentation about nesting boxes, sometimes you will have birds that are kind of like a rebel, and they like to, for some reason, peck their own eggs. Sometimes that is a nutrient deficiency. Maybe they're not getting a proper amount of nutrients they need. That can be sometimes from, maybe feeding a little too much grain and they're not getting enough of their usual food that they are meant to have at that certain stage. Okay. So they need to have that layer pellet or crumble feed um, first, and not as much of the scratch grain, and that'll kind of keep them from doing that. Sometimes it's a maybe low calcium or something like that, and they use that for the eggs for the shell. So something that I usually like to do when you have those that like to peck their own eggs, something that I've done in the past. I had an old farmer tell me this when I was very young and I started out, and he told me to put golf balls in each of the laying boxes. Um, that kind of prevents them from wanting to pick at the eggs. Not always, sometimes it does work. Basically, they peck that golf ball because they may think it's an egg. They see it's hard, and it kind of stops them sometimes. You're always going to have those that do it. Um, they also sell sometimes ceramic eggs. I've seen them in farm stores. So you have that as well. When it comes to roosts, you want to have somewhere that is about 24 inches above the floor, whether that be, you want it to be about as big as they can just about get their foot around. That way that they can hold on to it. That's where they're going to roost and sleep for the night. You want it to be a little bit higher. Like I said, 24 inches above the floor. It needs to be higher than the nesting boxes. They will want to sleep on these. I have used branches. I have used, smaller like dowel rods. Sometimes you can hammer or screw those into the coop in the corners. Usually is where I like to put mine, is in the corners, or I have made a ladder type roost before. And basically, I've got 3 to 4 different uh, levels on it so they can get up there to that, at least 24 inches above the floor, and they can sleep there. So, we're going to talk about predators for a second. So, when it comes to predators for poultry, chickens, for this presentation, everything's a predator. Okay. Anything from a cat, dog, coyote, hawk, owl, possum, raccoon, skunk, fox, mink, or weasel. Okay. I know that beagle right there looks sweet. It may be, but sometimes a dog gets a hold of the taste of chicken. Okay. It happens. But like I said, all these can be predators, so you have to be very careful. Earlier, when I was talking about when I built my first chicken coop and we used those dog panels, we put those on the sides of the back of the run. And then we also took and were able to put something on like another dog panel on top of it. That way we could keep aerial predators out. So your hawks and your owls and some of your other creatures that are going to climb that fence to try to get in there to get those birds. Um, a lot of times, another good thing to do whenever you do build your coop, um, the way I did mine, I didn't have to do it on the actual coop itself, but on the back, we put about 6 to 8 inches of the chicken wire actually into the ground. We buried it. That way, whenever something tried to tunnel under, it would run right into that chicken wire and wouldn't try to, hopefully wouldn't try to get back under there again. It's just other ways of protection, trying to keep these predators out. Just do remember with the hawks and owls, they are federally protected. Take with that. Make sure that you're not out there trying to take out a hawk or an owl, please. But this is a way to keep all those predators out. There are many different ways to do so, whether that is using extra chicken wire, a roof over your run, if you have a run on the back of your chicken coop. And that's basically just to kind of let your hens go out there and forage on grass. Um, so yeah, that's our predators. And I'll kind of give you an idea of what to look for if you do have some of these predators um, that do get into your coop. Some of these are the signs you're going to kind of look for. I'm not going to read all of them, but you can look for it. Like I said, cats, dogs, coyotes, fox, mink, weasel, hawk, owl, possum, rat, skunk, and raccoon. So like missing birds, sometimes they're mauled, scattered feathers, or digging around the pen. Um, let's see here, a hawk. The bird will be eaten on sight. There'll be a lot of feathers. Head and neck eaten for an owl. Sometimes it's the whole bird that's consumed. So, just kind of keep an eye on your flock of birds. If you do notice some are missing or it looks like something happened, these are some of the predators that you could have a problem with. So just try to keep as much protection for those birds as possible. All right. So now we're going to go into biosecurity. So biosecurity is one of the biggest things and one of the biggest topics I like to cover. The biggest things you want to remember is isolation, traffic, sanitation, direct and indirect transmission, and then also knowing who to call if something happens. Okay. So when it comes to isolation, you want to confine your birds within a controlled environment. You want to control them into that pen. Okay. You want to keep other birds out and you want to lock the doors to prevent access by other people. You want to separate the birds by age, and you do not really want to mix species. So you can have other types of chickens in there. Usually, what I tell people, if you're going to buy new birds or anything like that, you might want to quarantine them for a little bit, especially if they're younger birds. So, they could have the possibility of a possible disease or just the fact that their immune systems aren't built up as well. So you might want to quarantine them for a little bit before you put them into the pen with the rest of the birds. Traffic control, controlling traffic on and around your farm, and know who comes and who goes and why. So sometimes when we go out of town or we are busy all day, maybe we don't have time to get to our pen, and we ask, a neighbor or a family member to come by, and we ask them, "Hey, can you go check on my birds? Can you feed them?" And all this different stuff. One of the biggest things you want to remember is uh, even on your shoes, on your vehicle tires, anything like that, you could be spreading disease and not even know it. Okay. We'll get into a few of those here in a moment. But always remember sanitation. You want to disinfect your materials, equipment, and the people that work or enter the farm. Okay. So when I say disinfecting the materials and equipment, basically, say you and your neighbor both have chickens. Okay. So if I'm using a shovel on my in my coop to get out some of the chicken manure that is inside of my coop to kind of clean it out, I don't want to just hand that off to my neighbor if he asks, "Hey, can I borrow your shovel for my chicken coop?" I'm not just going to hand it straight off to him. I'm going to make sure I clean it and disinfect it before I hand it off to him. That way, I'm not spreading in disease from my coop to him. Now, once I receive that back, I'm going to ask and hope and expect that that equipment is brought back to me the same way it was given to them. Okay. You want to make sure disinfecting is the biggest thing. You don't want to track anything into that coop that doesn't need to be there. Um, and when you're working or entering the farm or going into the coop, Germex, washing your hands, um, changing your shoes. I usually what I like to tell people that I do, I have the same set of boots that I wear into my chicken coop. And I usually try to keep a few different pairs of clothes that I will wear when I go to my chicken coop. Yes, they are washed, I promise. But I want to make sure that everything is clean. That way, I'm not bringing any kind of disease into that coop. So, two main pathways of disease transmission. Disease transmission is physical contact between infected birds and healthy birds. That's why I usually say quarantine. So, if you notice any of your birds start to kind of look sickly, we'll kind of get into some of those signs and symptoms here in a few minutes, and I'll explain that. Indirect transmission is disease carried by susceptible birds. That can be humans, feed, water, environment, or shared equipment, uh, contaminated pens, pastures, water supplies, rodents and other vermin, and pets. So, whenever you go into the chicken coop, even if you have a very tame cat or dog, I wouldn't suggest them going in there, for indirect transmission. Okay. Um, Humans, same thing. Like I said, try to have the same shoes, boots, clothes that you wear into that chicken coop. So that way, you're not off at somebody else's farm and then you come back from their farm wearing the same shoes over to your farm. And you go into your chicken coop. Well, their birds might have had something, or your birds might have had something, and you transmitted something, not meaning to by any means, but it was transmitted. Okay. Same thing with the feed and water and environment. So, direct transmission, um, you want to make sure that you acquire your birds only from in-pit, National Poultry Improvement Plan. You want to make sure those flocks are in-pit. Um, you want to make sure you quarantine the birds for 30 days after purchase or returning from shows or fairs. So if you have a county fair, maybe you take some birds too, you're bringing them back home. You want to make sure that you quarantine them those 30 days. Same thing like when I was talking about bringing in new birds. Maybe you bought some birds this year, and then you decide next you want to buy some more birds, and you buy chicks. You want to keep those separate and quarantine for 30 days. You don't want to mix multiple species, particularly waterfowl and chicken or ages. Okay. So you want to kind of try to keep the ages of the birds about the same, pretty close there. And do not allow your flock contact with wild bird droppings by keeping domestic poultry under a roof. If you are free range, that is kind of impossible, but just try to keep an eye on that. The reason that we talk about wild bird droppings, so that's coming from geese, that's coming from ducks. Okay, that is where one way the avian influenza spreads. Ducks and geese can carry the virus, but they will not get it. Chickens will get the virus. Okay, and it spreads pretty quickly. We'll talk here in a little bit about avian influenza and kind of what to do if you end up having it and some of the signs and symptoms. But that's one of the big things I wanted to talk about on that is that make sure they don't have any contact with any other birds if possible. Okay, biosecurity is a very, very, very big thing that you need. You need to have a biosecurity plan. Indirect transmission, you can post no visitors and restricted area signs at the road entrance. Don't allow visitors to your birds and do not visit other poultry farms. I know sometimes that seems a little harsh, but it's you trying to protect your birds. We're not always going to have, no visitor signs. We don't want to sound harsh. We want to be welcoming to people. Um, but like I said, you don't want to be, in a neighbor's chicken pen helping them out and then go right over to your pen in the same clothes you could possibly transmit something. Like I said, you're not meaning to, but sometimes it does happen. Dedicate, like I said, footwear and clothing to use when working in or near your flock. Doesn't mean you can't wash the clothes. Okay. You want to clean and disinfect all the coops, crates, and other poultry containers or equipment before and after each use. Use plastic or metal, not wood, because wood is hard to clean. Okay. So you want to make sure that you disinfect and clean everything. I'm not saying your chicken coop is going to look all prim, proper, and pretty all the time. Okay. Um, the biggest thing is just making sure that all your tools are cleaned. Every now and then you're going to have to scoop the defecation out of the chicken coop. If not, it's going to mound up in there, and nobody wants that. Okay. So just make sure you keep everything good and clean. Dedicate the footwear and clothing when working near your flock. Like I said, I'm not saying you can't go to um, other poultry farms, but the most you can avoid it would be, a little bit better for your flock. If you do go to somebody else's place, make sure once you come home, you know, sanitation is key. Clean yourself. Put on, if you have that dedicated footwear and clothing, put that on, and then go out to your birds. Also, when possible, cover the pens and vents and openings in the chicken coop with a mesh wire screen, or sometimes you can use the what we call chicken wire or chicken fencing to keep out wild birds. So, like I talked about earlier, having that covering so that way no other animals can get into it. You've got that wire, so sun's still coming through, the air's still coming through, all that ventilation and the air quality, that's all something that all comes together. It's all one big machine. It just works all together. Monitor all vehicles entering the farm to determine if they've been cleaned and disinfected, including tires and undercarriage. I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. One of the big things to remember is, if you're driving down the road and, wild bird meaning a goose or a duck or something of that nature, or you're on somebody else's farm, another animal, bird, you have run into your tire tracks some of their manure or defecation. Once you get home, now that's on your property. Okay. So I'm not saying, you can't drive your vehicle back to your flock, but if you're going to, make sure that it is cleaned. Okay. I'm not asking you to wash your vehicle every single day and every time you go back there, but, try to keep it as clean as possible. Don't share equipment with friends or neighbors. I'm kind of lenient on that, just in the fact of you're not really supposed to. So if you can help it, try not to. But if they do need to borrow something, or you need to borrow something, make sure that you disinfect and clean all of those tools and equipment. So these are USDA's 6 steps to keep your birds healthy. You want to keep your distance, isolate your birds from visitors and other birds, keep it clean, prevent germs from spreading by cleaning shoes, tools, and equipment. Don't call disease home. Clean your vehicles and cages that may have been off farm. Don't borrow disease from your neighbor, so you want to avoid sharing tools and equipment, and know the warning signs of infectious disease. And then you want to report those sick birds. And we'll get into those two, number 5 and 6, those last 2 steps here in just a second. So, knowing who to call. You want to call your local county extension agent. So you want to call them and let them know, if you've got a problem with your biosecurity. A local veterinarian, the Cord Animal Health Diagnostic Lab. And once you call your extension agent, we'll kind of explain these different people you may need to call, and we will let you know. So you don't have to memorize these numbers right off the top of your head. We can get that to you. That's not a problem, but this is kind of the order, or not really the order, but the people that you can call. Start out in your county when talking to your extension agent. Maybe if your extension agent's not there, go to the local vet. We have our state specialist for poultry, and then also the state veterinarian's office. Okay. Now back to biosecurity. There are some external parasites that you can have. Anything from mites to lice, bed bugs, and fleas. There are different types of internal parasites. Most of them are going to be all worms. So, your roundworms, tapeworms, threadworms, and cecal worms. You'll kind of Uh, uh, you may see those over time. So if you see those, it might not be a bad idea to call, go ahead, isolate those birds that are showing those symptoms or those parasites. Some diseases that we kind of see most of the time is Merrick's disease. That's sometimes and usually treated at the hatchery once they hatch. But if you ever have it, it is a virus with a loss of weight, paralysis, and sudden death sometimes. So be on the lookout for that. Fowl pox, there are blisters or scabs on their comb and wattles. So their comb is going to be what's on top of the head. And then their wattles, I'll show you here in a second, kind of down here around their chin, like where our chin would be. Newcastle or bronchitis is kind of a respiratory disease. And we'll go into some of those symptoms here in just a second. So, like I was talking about with the wattles and the comb, of course, is going to be on the top of the head, and then those wattles will be right there on the bottom, right below their beak. There'll be that little red circle area section. But these are some of the symptoms for respiratory sicknesses, as well as avian influenza. So, yes, I know you're probably all wondering, wait a minute, it says sneezing and coughing. Yes, chickens can cough and they can sneeze. It is possible, and it has happened. I have seen it before. Um, Also, nasal discharge, swollen sinuses, maybe a decrease in egg production. Sometimes a decrease in egg production may be a disease. Sometimes it's just that they have gotten past their prime, and once they hit that certain point, they don't lay anymore. So be on the lookout for that. Increased mortality, and then the discoloration of comb, head wattles, and or legs. So a lot of times with some of these birds, it's a little easier to see on these like white leghorns. You'll see one here that this person is holding. They have the white feathers. Whenever they are laying their eggs, over time, some of that pigmentation might start to get a little dull. So that red might start to get a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter. They're using that pigmentation to put into their eggs. Okay. That's what makes them the certain colors that they are sometimes. All right. So avian influenza, how's it transmitted? So whether that is walking through infected fecal material just before entering the chicken house, the coop or pen, uh, must be considered a possible transmission route. So, like I said, you want to make sure that you have specific shoes, boots, clothes that you wear into the coop. That way, sometimes that can even happen wearing those specific clothes and shoes just through your backyard. If you've got a pet or something, or a bird has defecated or anything kind of like that, any fecal matter that you walk through, you may possibly be transmitting something. It is critical to use foot baths and clean and disinfect footwear or wear new disposable footwear covers when working around your chickens. So sometimes what I have seen some people do when it comes to what is a foot bath, a lot of people don't know what that is. A lot of times what I see is like a powdery, powdery, almost like a bleach, I believe it is. Uh, some people will have a little tray that has some powdered bleach in it. They'll step in it with their shoes they're wearing before they go into the coop to make sure good sanitation. Sometimes people just completely clean them, or they leave some shoes in the chicken house that they wear whenever they are like right outside the chicken house that they put on whenever they go in. I know this isn't always something that everybody's going to have, but this is another way to help keep our birds healthy. Um, and by no way am I trying to say, that this is too much work for anybody. Anybody can do this. Um, uh, but this is just another way to kind of keep that safety of those birds. And then it talks about this disposable footwear. Use that up to what you want to do. You can get those online. And also, you want to make sure and clean and sanitize your hands and arms before entering and when leaving the chicken house. You can keep a bottle of Germ-X right there in the chicken house. That's what I do at home to make sure that my biosecurity plan is intact. How can avian influenza be prevented? The most important things that you can really do to prevent AI from entering your flocks, consistently practice a strong biosecurity program. So, like I said, you want to have a good, strong biosecurity program. maybe write out a plan. And then you want to make sure that you prevent contact between your birds and wild birds, particularly your waterfowl, your ducks and geese. That'll help in your biosecurity plan as well. And then you want to immediately report sick or dying birds to the proper officials. Like I said, you can call your local extension office. There's an office in all 95 counties. I represent Sumner County. So you will have an agent in each office that you can call and report, if you've got a sick or dying bird. And then, we'll probably tell you, call the veterinarian, figure out what may be going on with it. There is a diagnostic lab in Nashville at Ellington. Um, it's the CE Cord Diagnostic Center, and they will do a necropsy to figure out, if you've got a bird that has just passed away, maybe take it up there, see, okay, what was the reason for this? They may be able to tell you. Sometimes it could just be old age. So, like I said, have a sign. Be on the lookout for some of these signs here. These are, mostly for respiratory, but be on the lookout for some of these signs and such. Okay. Now, one of the big questions a lot of people ask, where can I get pullets? Okay. You can go to, there's a lot of different hatcheries. These are some of the hatcheries I have heard people use before. You got Murray McMurray, you've got Mount Healthy, you've got Cackle, Stromberg's, and Ideal. And then, of course, there's your local feed stores and co-ops and Tractor Supplies and things of that nature. So if whenever you're looking to get those pullets, a lot of these places are the chicks you get from the hatcheries, the ones with the links there beside them. Those are they should all be MPIP certified, and that's the birds that you want. Local feed stores and county co-ops, they're usually probably getting their birds from somewhere like this, so you can get them from there. So, like I said, there's a lot of different things when it comes into um, getting birds and poultry. You want to make sure that you have a true plan together. I know it seems like a lot, but it's really not that bad. Just create a plan, figure out what kind of birds do I want, what kind of chicken coop or pen or chicken house do I want to have, how am I going to execute that, and then making sure you have a biosecurity plan intact of making sure that these birds are good and healthy, making sure they're taken care of, using the proper steps, the proper feed, keeping those feeders and those waterers at back height, and knowing who to call for all the information you need. And all this information here on this slideshow, I know that this is being recorded, so it will be on YouTube. But if you do have any questions, I don't mind if you reach out to me. Reach out to your local county extension office. Um, uh,
I do have a question.
yes,
Um,
ma'am.
so sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, you're fine.
So, we are doing something called the deep litter method, and my husband, so you said that what you don't change it like at all, you just keep adding to it?
Uh, for the size of our coop, for the number of chickens we have, I only need to change it out maybe once a year. But what I do is, well, we have enough funds to do it, but about every month or so, you add another about 1 inch layer of the bedding on it. And every week I go out there and I take a rake and I mix it up just so that it doesn't stagnate.
Hmm.
Um, so that so that I can, keep everything mixed up and let all the fumes aerate out because of our coop.
Hmm.
It has it's ventilated at the roof. The roof is not fully sealed onto all four walls. So it has constant 24/7 ventilation. And I have a double door or like barn style doors that have a double doors themselves. So you can open the smaller door and it has like a chicken wire there so
Hmm.
that you can even have more ventilation. So there's no lack of ventilation. It's
Right.
just you have to about every month put another layer of bedding on it. And about every week, like I said, I go in there and I rake it up and I don't pull it out. I just mix it up. And then at the end of the year, I would take it all out and then restart it. And it's about 12 inches deep at the beginning of, 12 inches deep of litter I can make. But I start out with only like maybe 4 inches of the bedding.
Yeah.
So
Now,
I've actually never heard of anyone doing that before. My only concern with that is that biosecurity. Um, yeah, I've never heard of anyone doing that before. That's interesting though.
okay.
That is interesting.
So would you recommend like we don't do that anymore or
I mean, like I said, my only concern is that biosecurity. You know, like I said, I've never heard of anybody doing it before. This is brand new to me.
Huh.
But I I would almost probably not do that just to be on the
Okay.
safe.
okay.
Just to be on the safe side. Like I said, I haven't really read a whole lot uh of people doing that have come to me and talked to me about it.
Mhm.
Um, but
Okay.
um, if it works efficiently, that's up to you. Like I said, my only worry would probably be a little bit of that biosecurity. Um, but yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Andrew? Anybody? If not, well, thank you, Andrew, for coming and giving a talk on the backyard poultry for us. And of course, if y'all do have any questions or think of any, y'all can always email me. And if I can't answer them, I'll send them on to either Andrew or our poultry specialist, Tom Tabler, and we'll figure out the answer for you one way or the other for sure. Um, like I said, this video will be up and viewable on YouTube as of tomorrow. So
Mm.
I think something got added to the chat right there.
I don't know, it's just avian flu thing.
Yeah, the avian influenza, it's a real problem. And people don't realize how big of a problem it is because
Mhm.
your waterfowl birds can carry it, and you never tell that they have it. They are almost completely resistant to it. So
Mhm.
any sources of water close to your coop or anything like that that might attract ducks, geese,
Mhm.
stuff like that, um, always try to make sure your coop's nowhere
Are you
close to
done?
that. But the avian influenza
And
will definitely
so well.
it will definitely kill a flock of laying hens in no time at all.
Mm.
Yes, yes, it will. Um, like I said earlier, I was talking with our poultry specialist at UT, Tom Tabler, today. I had mentioned that there were a couple cases. There was one up in, I believe it was Minnesota, and they had a 3 million bird egg laying house that all
Oh,
tested
Lord.
avian influenza. And then I think there was another 500,000 in Wisconsin that tested positive. So it's coming back south. So like I said earlier in the presentation, it will possibly uh, egg prices may skyrocket back up a little bit
Mm.
at the end of the year. So just be on the lookout for that. But yes, avian influenza is a very, very dangerous disease. So make sure you keep a good lookout on your flock of birds.
Okay.
All right, y'all. Well, thank y'all so much for attending. And like I said, if y'all have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to answer them. And other than that, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Y'all have
Thanks,
a good night.
Andrew. Thanks, Cody.
Thank y'all.